We welcome you to the CBK podcast. This podcast addresses the most important banking topics that affect the lives of individuals and society. I am Mariam Lumkhazim, an economist at the Central Bank of Kuwait. CBK released its 10th edition of its Financial Stability Report, a report that is issued annually covering various topics and containing data and information about the local financial system in general and the Kuwaiti banking sector in particular. In today's episode, we host Moody Limnifi, Assistant Financial Analyst at the Financial Stability Office, to give an overview on this report.
Hello, Mariam. Thank you for hosting, and I'd like to welcome our listeners.
First of all, can you define the title of the report? What does financial stability mean?
Sure. Basically, financial stability is the state in which the financial system is resilient against economic shocks and is fit to effectively fulfill its basic functions without disruptions, even under stressed situations. For example, during the COVID pandemic, we witnessed the partial and full lockdowns, which affected the country as a whole. However, the banking sector continued to perform its roles without interruptions, whether in terms of granting financing for borrowers or providing access to depositors' funds when withdrawals are requested, or even transferring money to other parties in or outside of Kuwait. As such, maintaining financial stability is vital and is one of the most important goals of central banks and regulators around the world. Its scope goes beyond the banking sector to include the stability of other financial institutions. It also extends to the payment systems where payments and settlement transactions are processed, all of which are discussed in more detail in the report.
Does this mean that the FSR has a wider scope than the banking sector?
Yes, the report consists of 5 chapters. Chapter 1 examines global and local economic developments, presenting key economic indicators along with an overview of the performance of key markets. Chapter 2, 3, and 4 give an overview of the Kuwaiti financial system, highlighting key attributes and developments of the banking sector, as well as key risks faced by the banking system. They also cover multiple aspects of credit, liquidity, market and operational risks, and the strength of local banks, analyzing both profitability and resilience to provide a thorough assessment of the sector. These chapters, Mariam, contain detailed data and analysis on the banking sector that may be hard to obtain from other sources. Finally, Chapter 5 examines the financial system infrastructure, payment and settlement systems. In addition, the report also contains boxes that address various topics, usually new ones, or cover recently issued CBK instructions and procedures.
Well, before we talk about the boxes, you mentioned that the last chapter of the report covers the financial system infrastructure. Can you give more details?
The financial system infrastructure refers to the system used to make payments or settlements, such as points of sale, ATMs, and Keenet electronic payment gateway.
Do you mean when we buy online and enter our bank account details for payment?
Exactly. These are all payment systems that form the basic infrastructure which we rely on to conduct our financial transaction. Efficiency of these systems is a requirement for financial stability.
Moody, let's talk about the boxes which you mentioned earlier. Can you give us examples of the topics that are covered?
Of course, as I mentioned before, 2021 FSR consists of 5 boxes. 1 covers climate change and explores Kuwait's efforts in tackling this issue in accordance with the best international practices. It also gives an overview of the local bank's exposure to green projects and the risk corresponding to such international phenomenon. Another box covers CBK's new institutional framework. After the COVID pandemic, CBK has enhanced its internal policies, systems, and analytical approaches, and has also introduced new tools to reflect the latest global advances.
Can you elaborate further on these advances?
The most prominent, I would say, is digital transformation. This report has 2 boxes highlighting this advancement. One of these boxes is about digital banks and the local shift toward digital banking. The other box sets the cybersecurity risk associated with digitization and ways to mitigate the associated risk and reduce their impact, in addition to CBK's cybersecurity framework. The final box is more technical and addressed to those interested in risk management. It introduced the final amendments by the Basel Committee to Basel III regarding applying risk weights to counterparties and the implication of such standards locally and internationally.
What is Basel Committee, and why is it significant for risk managers to know the impacts of applying their standards?
The Basel Committee on Banking Supervision is an international committee formed by the Bank for International Settlements, or the BIS, to develop standards for banking regulation. In other words, it is the committee responsible for determining the best international practices for banks. Its recommendations are usually targeted towards risk mitigation and application of effective supervision on banks to achieve financial stability.
Okay, can you summarize the report for the audience in one main idea?
The report can't be really summarized in one idea, but in general, let's say that this report demonstrates how the banking sector has proven its recovery after the pandemic and its ability to face future challenges.
Thank you, Modi, for the information. To conclude, can you clarify who are the target audience for the Financial Stability Report of 2021 and who might benefit from it the most?
CBK's goal through publishing this report annually is to promote transparency on topics related to the financial system. And as I mentioned earlier, this report covers the details of the banking sector recovery after the pandemic, as well as the infrastructure key indicators and other various topics. We also made sure to conclude each chapter with an outlook. While 2021 was a positive year on several levels, we noticed that 2022 was full of challenges directly related to the financial stability, such as high inflation rates, rapid increases in the interest rates due to monetary policy responses, the Russia-Ukraine war, and others. So, if we go back to the second part of the question, who will benefit from this report? I would say those interested in local economic and financial issues, such as individuals working in the banking and financial sector, investors, business owners, academics, university students, and others.
Thank you. And for those interested, you may view the 10th issue of the Financial Stability Report on CBK website. This brings us to the end of our podcast. Thanks for listening. You were with Mariam Loukhazim and Modi Lemnifi in a Central Bank of Kuwait podcast.